come to order. First item on the agenda is the election of a vice chair. Nominations would be welcome. There's not much pay.
I'll nominate Virginia.
I hear a second. Any other nominations? Would you do it if they voted for you?
I will do it. Fair question.
All right. Well, we have one nomination, so it's all in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You're in luck.
Oh, yes. Thank you very much.
Their condolences.
Right. Okay, next thing on the agenda. The next three things are sort of related, and they relate to what we did at our last meeting, which is talk about moving forward and the kind of proposals that the town's going to have to consider at the fall town meeting and what we want to do to move those forward. I think it boiled down to about three different baskets here. One of them was the eco toilet checkerboarding bylaw, which has had some experience and been looked at to some extent in this committee, but obviously needs more if there's going to be something ready for the fall. I think what we're talking about here is study groups to come up with at least the basis of a bylaw that we could then forward to the selectmen for their consideration when the warrant closes in September. So I thought since Wynn and Matt have made their life's work eco toilets, that they would be to work on that. Matt got a head start on us last spring, and so I think if the two of you together with Sia and Jerry can put something together in the next month and a half, we'll let you be that group. Is that okay?
Sure. Okay.
The second one was an appointment of, again, a study group on proposed betterment cost reduction special act, which we went through the possible elements of that at the last meeting. And Ron has been involved in that issue about 3 years ago,
Yeah.
and Virginia as well, and I wondered if you two would mind taking that one on.
Yeah, happy.
Okay. Yeah.
Third one is the flow neutral bylaw, and that again has a history. John Waterbury, our new member, was involved in that the last time it surfaced. And Steve has expressed enough interest in it and has enough background in it that if you two would take that on.
Sure.
As is customary in almost every legislative body, when you have these groups, the chair will stick his nose into it from time to time and participate when you're meeting. So let me know when you're meeting. And we do have help that we can get from Jerry and from other town people and Sia, of course. But again, the deadline for our deliberations as far as having something that we want to forward on to the selectmen is probably the beginning of September.
Okay.
So you don't get August off. Any comments or questions?
So do we have an exact date for the deadline for the articles?
I don't think they've said it yet.
They haven't said it yet, but it's going to be set, within the next month. And it's usually like September 10th. It's fairly soon after Labor Day. Labor Day this year is early, but I'd say September. It's always a Friday, we can say it that way. So the first or second Friday in September is likely to be the drop dead date.
Sure.
It could be the
Steve.
6th. It could be the Friday the 6th.
It could be as
Could be
early
the
as the
And the
6th.
next is the 13th. That's probably the 6th, I would
Okay.
think. Yeah.
We also have to figure, you have to allow enough time for the whole committee to consider what the various task force
Right.
have done.
Right.
Or else John and I might foist on you something you don't like.
Right.
Well, particularly in the nutrient management bylaw,
Yeah.
we probably ought to have an early discussion to get us set off in a reason. I bring a pretty severe prejudice to
Yes.
how we should approach this.
Right.
And if we charge off with that prejudice in hand, we may not get what we need. So I would suggest that we have a chat early on and try and figure where we want this to take us.
Yeah. Well, prior to your joining, the committee has had, some discussion on this, and I think the basic premise is we want something that will pass town meeting and will meet the minimum requirements of a 0% loan, and that's all. We're not expanding our universe to public policy beyond those 2 points, realistically.
Could I add one other thing? Times have changed and regulation marches on since you did your original efforts, and we now have guidance from DEP, and SIA has read this document carefully and looked at the factual information that it asks for. So I think very early on she needs to sort of have a data dump transfer to the subcommittee of what does the guidance say, what is the kind of data that they're looking for. And I think that will help inform you as to what the state's looking for in what it means by flow neutral.
I might just remind the committee that, the Board of Health started looking at this way before the state even thought about it.
Agreed.
And the idea was that if you release people from Title V, redevelopment gets you in very bad trouble. And I think one of the things we need to remember is that it's not enough that we design something that will today get us to meet TMDLs. We have to maintain them in perpetuity. And the whole idea of that effort was to design something. And so to turn it around and say all we're trying to do is meet the requirements of the zero interest loan program, I think is selling the town very short. That we need a long-term solution to this, and I think we shouldn't be doing it just to meet that zero interest loan. In fact, what the state was trying to do when they set up that was that they said, if you're going to be doing these things, redevelopment is going to be a huge issue, and you better come to grips with it. And the way they decided to do that was to mandate if you're going to apply for these zero interest loans, you better have a nutrient management bylaw in place. But I think we should be thinking of it more globally.
You mean flow neutral?
Well, it was a nutrient management.
That's what it's called then. Yeah,
yeah.
Flow neutral is the
Flow
buzzword
neutral
now.
is what it's called now.
Right, but it's the same, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
Right.
But anyway, that's why I think we need to
Right.
have this discussion early on.
Right.
Quick thing.
Sure.
All the groups have to make sure, like this one, definitely you have to tie in with Brian and obviously the Board of Health. Because the more broader it is, the more it becomes a planning document. So, and I think you know that, and so that it's important that the committee reaches out to the appropriate other departments. I think the planning board, all the bylaws have to get a quick read by Frank.
Sure.
I mean, he's going to look at it afterwards, but it's better if you go in, at least you know what Frank's advice may be on some of these.
Yeah, Jerry's absolutely right. It's town council, it's the selectmen, it's the Board of Health, it's the planning board. All of them have to be on board for this to happen.
And if the planning board and town council seem to be on board, I think it makes it a lot easier.
Sure, absolutely. Comments, questions? Ron?
I was just going to throw something else out that actually Steve Rafferty had mentioned, which was, in considering this, we should look at whether it's really worthwhile putting together this bylaw for passage. He said that the complexities, again, going from a zero interest to a 2% loan, 0% interest, or to a 2% loan, was something to look at. It was just to scope it out, because there might be other controls in town already under planning and conservation and other things that might already control the growth to the way we need it to be. And the point you just raised, John, about meeting the TMDLs is again another important dimension to this, because we have to stay within that anyway. So it's just a question to say, at some point, I think it's a good idea to do it, but the thing is that when you weigh all the pluses and minuses, we should see really how much,
What John is saying
Yeah.
is, you're not just saving the 2%, which
Yeah.
comes out to 30% of your cost approximately, but you're saving all the future costs of having to meet the TMDLs with some imagined greater development, right? If
This might be a discussion.
you have to spend even more.
We're getting deep in the weeds.
But it's a necessary
Okay.
discussion.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to mention what Steve had said, and we might get get something from him just to see what his, I don't know if I'm representing him properly exactly is what he meant here, but he did raise that as a question.
Well, keep the number in mind. If you're borrowing $50 million, you're saving $1 million a year
Yeah.
for the entire length of the loan. That is a extremely important goal for the town of Falmouth if we're going to go forward with the schemes that we're proposing.
Right. But ultimately, it is a decision of town meeting, and they may not choose to take that path. Speaking of casting a wide net and coordinating with other boards, the planning board has appointed
Yes.
an official representative. It's Paul Dreyer, who's over here sitting next to Steve Fassett, who's the representative from the Finance Committee. And it seems to me that the flow neutral discussion all the way along, it's extremely important to both bring other boards along and also draw in information from them. So it's very nice to have regular liaisons with those boards.
And they will be added to the 2 lists for our meetings.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I
they
think so.
should.
Yeah, I mean,
Should be.
I think that's a good idea.
Yeah,
your emails aren't cluttered enough.
yeah. We'll make sure you're advised of these meetings.
Yeah.
We've already gotten a lot of useful information from Brian Curry with an eye toward drafting something flow neutral. So, but yeah, the board obviously has to be involved in this as well, up to their eyeballs.
I have one more question with respect to our task force on eco-toilet checkerboard bylaw. When do you want us to come up with? I mean, I think also that should be at least before the committee,
Right.
before September.
Right.
And we have the meeting on, I think it's August 1st.
We have
We
one
do.
August 1st and we have one August 29th. I think those are the 2 in August.
And the question is, should we prepare something on August 1st, just a report on August 1st?
Yes.
If you
Sooner
could.
the better.
If you could. I mean, that's 2 weeks.
You want?
Oh.
Oh, okay.
You gonna try to take a vacation again?
Yeah. Try one more.
Are you back in your house?
No.
Oh.
Oh, well, let's certainly say August 31st then. And if you have something
Absolutely.
earlier, we can send it around.
Send it around
for
better, yeah.
take a look at.
Okay.
And simpler the better. I mean, for an article, 4 or 5 sentences, 6 sentences.
Yeah, we don't need to get boggled down in legal language. I think the premise is to describe the elements, and we'll let Frank, Duffy, and others worry about the legal language.
I think we have a meeting would be on the 29th, actually.
Right,
Mhm.
good.
And
That's it,
then the
29.
next meeting would be, so if we had a discussion then,
Yep.
the next meeting would be then on the 5th of September, right?
Right,
It gets very tight if you allow for
That's right, yeah.
yeah.
one of the task forces come up with something, they present it to this committee, somebody on this committee says, wait a minute, what about that
Yeah.
ridiculous provision? And then the task force has to go back and then bring the revised thing back to here.
Well, the calendar is going to guide us, and it's going to require us to do what we need to do by a certain time. So if we haven't figured it out by the 29th, and we haven't by the 5th, it's gone.
Or we could aim for the 15th, is it the 15th, or
Yeah.
something like that, and then
Two.
to get a route, not the 15th, what is it, let's see.
Can I?
Yeah, Virginia.
We do have a second bite at the apple, and that is that there's usually a special within the annual, and that will have a deadline, the warrant closing sort of like the beginning of October. So it seems to me if we just are not able to pull all the threads together, we could, there's nothing money involved with these, so it could be in the special. It wouldn't hurt to be in the special.
It wouldn't hurt.
No, it wouldn't.
No.
I would look to the sections on Article 10 of the O'Leary bill. There's a couple of paragraphs already in there about some of the things we're talking about. There's some wording and checkerboarding, it may not be exactly, but this is language theoretically that the legislature has approved if the towns want to adopt it. And if we still want to do our own thing, start with language I think the legislature's like.
Sure.
And then approve on it if it's something in there we don't like.
Sure. Okay.
And I can send that out.
Thanks for the advice, Jerry.
Any further comment or discussion about these study groups? I think is the more appropriate language. We don't want to start getting into this subcommittee fandango. So, all right. Number 5, status of the Falmouth nitrogen control bylaw. As you recall, for our nationwide TV audience, I'll remind them, Falmouth passed a nitrogen control bylaw, which was recommended very highly by DEP and anyone else who's looked at the causes of the estuaries decline, because fertilizer is the second largest cause of fertilizer of nitrogen in these estuaries. Falmouth is the only town that passed a bylaw that was drafted by this committee and its able consultant. And town meeting passed it, and it went to the legislature, and it went to the Attorney General, who heard noisily from the fertilizer industry that this was a bad thing and shouldn't be permitted. For a number of reasons, they agreed with them. Our state senator and our state reps responded to that by putting language in the state budget that would basically grandfather Falmouth's bylaw. And that budget went to the governor and has not yet come back. So the governor has two choices now. He can either veto that language, in which case the legislature gets the chance to override him, or he can leave it alone, in which case Falmouth's bylaw will be intact and in place. And we're going to find out real soon, because the governor only has 10 days for when the budget went to him to do these things, and I think it went to him pretty close to 10 days ago. So we're going to find out real soon what happens with that. But it may well be that at the end of the day, Falmouth will have a bylaw and no one else will.
I thought the Attorney General just looked at the constitutional issues.
Well, they looked at this.
She actually had a hearing with.
There was no hearing or anything. What happened was that the legislature passed a bill that dealt in passing with nitrogen, but basically it dealt with phosphorus, and it said all regulation of this goes to the Department of Agricultural Resources.
Right.
And the Attorney General looked at it and said, well, that kind of preempts the towns doing their own thing here. The town had a good reason for not thinking that was the case, because the general counsel for that Department of Agricultural Resources told them it would be all right.
Yeah.
But that's in the past. So the Attorney General had to look at it, and like they do with every local bylaw, to make sure it doesn't conflict with state law, and they determined that it did conflict with that particular law. But we may find ourselves with a bylaw anyway. So, Ron?
I think that there's also another, even if the worst case is it doesn't go through, I think it's a very good step, because from what I've heard or read, the Department of Agricultural Resources has been tasked with coming up with a fertilizer control bylaw for the state. So that this would be something that would feed into that we would then be included in. When they do that though, like Nantucket and Falmouth would be excluded from those statutes, because we already have our own apparently. So that, it will come, is what my understanding is in any case.
If the Department of Agricultural Resources does what you think they ought to do.
Well,
they've been given the option to do it, but whether they do it or not is a fair question.
Right.
The Cape Cod Commission also, in the same statute that the legislature passed, they did give the Cape Cod Commission the ability to come up with a regional approach, and we've talked to them, and their regional approach would include some options for the towns to adopt if they want to. So that may be the third possibility of how this can go, but we'll find out about the first option within a week. Any other comments or questions on shellfish? Nitrogen control. Next one, shellfish demonstration project. So we have a death in the family.
On Wednesday, before the 4th of July, so the 3rd of July, the first 200,000 oysters were put into Little Pond. They were of the right size, and they were graded. They were sifted and graded and put in bags in Little Pond. And I don't know if you realize this, but it rained 13 inches in the month of June. And that significantly affects salinity and salinity gradients in any water body, Little Pond in particular. And temperatures spiked above 27, 28, 29 degrees C. So there was a real, there was a pressure to put the oysters in because they were ready to go, and we had been waiting for the right time and the monitoring to begin, the pre-oyster monitoring. And that all happened, and so they were deployed. But because of the low salinity and because of the extraordinarily high temperatures, there was very high mortality. So by Saturday, there was about 10% mortality. And that gave great cause for concern. So Monday morning, SMAST did some sort of just-in-time measurements. And I was down there first thing in the morning, and the FACES monitoring group happened to be there taking at the shore. So there's a gradient of salinity across the pond. There's also a gradient down the water column. And so to sort of make a long story short, around the pond, as you can imagine, where groundwater is flowing in, we were looking at 5 parts per thousand of salinity, which is almost fresh water. You stick your finger in, and if you dare to taste it, it will not taste salty at all. SMAST had gone out and came back basically the next day with results that we were looking at 16, 15 in the middle of the pond. And so we right away moved the oysters into the middle of the pond where there was more salinity. And then today I went out with SMAST and a sonde and a boat, and we did a grid. We did the perimeter. We went up and down just to get some real time. So these measurements were taken every second. So we watched going across, around the perimeter and through the middle of the shellfish area. And we're looking at between 13 around the sides and 18 in the middle parts per thousand. So the salinity is up. Yesterday they did a measurement before this, and it was 22. But then we had a dump of rain. So it looks like that 5 parts per thousand, 8 parts per thousand was an unusual phenomenon. And even with the kind of rain we're getting now in July, we should be okay from a salinity perspective. We're going to put one more string in tomorrow and let them go for a few days and see how that batch does before deploying the rest of the first batch, so the first 1.25 million. So the reason you do a demonstration is to understand what your standard operating procedures should be. So I'm actually really encouraged that we are learning that you want to test salinity before you put oysters in, and you want to look at temperature and maybe hold off for a couple of days, which obviates the need to have transitioning. We have to have a transitioning, and we worked that out with Chucky's transitioning by keeping them in Falmouth Harbor. So we've got a good system in place for transitioning out of the upweller and not necessarily going into Little Pond if the conditions are such as they were, unusually high temperatures, unusually low salinity. So we're on top of it. SMAST has been great bringing out zones, coming and doing testing. And I think we're going to keep testing and making sure that we know what the conditions are. Jerry, do you want to add anything?
That's it. Oh, we know we may have to we spend a little bit more money to get more reports from Brian. He sampled in May and June, and the reports are available, and the things that will be helpful. So that was in their proposal. We initially didn't fund it, but it looks like now we should fund it, and we're adding in a small price to put a flow gauge, is it?
Yeah, the tidal gauge.
Tidal gauge.
A tidal gauge, which was recommended. As you all, the report came out. They made a recommendation to have a tidal gauge, so we'll understand what the constriction at that inlet is really doing in terms of the tidal prism and changes to that. So that piece of information would be helpful to our understanding of what happens. And I think the other seminal point is the oysters are sitting in the first 4 inches because of the floating bags. And there is a significant salinity gradient from the surface down to the bottom. And oftentimes the readings are done kind of in the middle of that water column. But we did today, and what we're going to continue to do is really look at that first 4 or 5 inches to know what the salinity is. So one of the things that SMAST had recommended is putting a monitoring sonde at the surface. The Conservation Commission wanted them at the bottom to understand about dissolved oxygen and those parameters in the bottom. But I think for our purposes, having an additional sonde at the surface to know what's happening in terms of temperature and salinity, where the oysters are actually growing, would help us in terms of our decision-making needs.
Are young oysters more? Are young oysters more sensitive to oxygen than they are when they get older and more stable? Or?
I have no idea.
To salt.
I think the difference was it was a shock because in Falmouth Harbor they were at 22 parts per thousand and 24 degrees C, and they were shocked both in terms of temperature and in terms of salinity or lack of salinity. But Ron may have some insights.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, basically it's sort of standard good aquaculture practice when you're moving things from one place to another that you check to be sure, to see where you're going, and where you are and where you're going. And normally what happens is that there's a acclimation process, like with fish. Now this is a little more complicated maybe with the oyster seed because there's so many of them, so compact, like you have fish in bags and you can start changing water slowly back and forth. And that's just basically the standard thing. In this case, there was an assumption made. And I think what Sia said is correct, is that it was shock to go from that extreme. The other thing is that at 5 parts per thousand, actually oysters, the literature says oysters do well. I mean, not do well, they survive at 5. So we weren't really completely out of the range. But what happens is that the feeding behavior, or the capacity to feed, drops off. And then that when they're so tiny, they don't have much reserves, so they will starve.
Yeah.
And so so there's a couple of things that could be happening, but so it is better though to get them in an upper range if possible. I mean, this year was an unusual year. We've learned a lot of good lessons here, and it was fortunately we didn't take the whole thing and put it all in at once. But 10% loss of a couple 100,000. For this kind of an extreme situation is pretty small, pretty minimal. I mean, you could expect. I've seen other cases where it's been almost 100%. Not with oysters, with fish, where it was just an error in how the transfer was done. But in this case, I think that it's really we'll learn as we go along. There's going to be other we'll be tripping, I think, as we move on a bit now and then. But as we move in a progressive way, and as now we're looking at the pond, and as Sia said, and looking at the locations and what's really happening, that we'll be able to understand and it'll become like second nature, I think, by next year.
Steve?
Can you put this in context for me in 2 ways? The first way, I think Ron just answered, that 10%, a one-time 10% loss doesn't sound that bad. If it was 10% every day for 15 days, that would be bad. And so am I correct? This is a one-time 10%.
It was only 10% of the 10%.
It was 10% of the 10%, so it's about
Even
2,000.
better.
Right.
And then the other context is, yes, we're sort of pioneers in using oysters to remove nitrogen, but no way are we pioneers in growing oysters, even growing oysters in estuaries. So what do the professional oyster people say about this? Are we just new to the game, and so like new gardeners we have to learn stuff, or are we doing something really nuts, trying to put oysters in little ponds?
I think I can answer that. Basically, we should have looked at the salinity in the two water bodies, and then checked, and if there was a big difference, then possibly put them in, as Sia said, maybe instead of on the edge, more interior-wise, but we could find out a better spot.
But we have consultant who's a professional oysterman, right? Who's been
Yeah,
doing
but-
this for years.
We
And just
don't,
put
well,
that
not
together
working,
for
not,
me.
not on the project at the moment.
John Grawley, I thought.
He's not, I don't think he's still directly on the project. I think that his
Oh,
task
okay.
is past. But he may not have this kind of issue. I mean, he's in Cape Cod Bay. That's where he does his oystering, and you're not gonna get that kind of situation we have with Little Pond. So certain things, we're learning more about this estuary type thing.
That's what,
Yeah,
I
if we
think
talk to
that's the
Jack
point.
Blake, yeah.
We are pioneers.
Yeah, yeah.
We are taking oysters that are growing in an upweller and taking them from one place and putting them in Little Pond, which is a very degraded estuary.
Whereas normally people move it from the upweller to the same estuary that the upweller is in.
Typically, and in larger bays.
And larger bodies of water.
Or less constrained. I mean, Little
More
Pond-
flushing.
More flushing. The salinity doesn't fluctuate quite as much. This is we all know it's an unusual year just from living here, but it is. But that doesn't mean it won't happen periodically. It's just we have to be alert. I think that I think the problem has been addressed for my.
Well, and the other thing to the people that the viability test last year, the bag was very close to where they were put this year, and they thrived.
Well, more importantly, it was put right in front of the drain, and that night we had a torrential shower. Okay, but they were already in the pond, so the salinity changed pretty fast, but they were in that water as opposed to being popped into, just straight in, so that as it changed, there was more of a gradual ism. So I think they did fine last year.
Can I ask you, one of the experts here, does the lack of dissolved oxygen
Salt.
make a big issue?
Oh,
The dissolved oxygen is actually very high.
yeah,
Oh,
it's
it
very
is?
high.
Yeah, it's very, very high.
Well,
It's salinity.
how does it, so it's similar to Falmouth Harbor then? So that wasn't a shock?
It wasn't
It
a
could have
problem.
been-
I think
and
it was
also
temperature. I think
temperature and
Temperature
temperature.
and salinity.
Temperature and salinity together, and just the not the actual values, but the difference between
But-
one set of values
but
and where they
oyster-
came from and where they were
Yeah,
going. And we need to just remember that.
Right. Oysters also live in the intertidal. Right. So when the tide goes out and the sun is shining and it's a hot day, they
just
get
close
hot. Okay, then the water comes in and they cool right down again. So they've got temperature-wise, they seem to be pretty resilient. They're really, they're good animals for this type of thing because they are quite rugged.
And we didn't get 100% mortality. We got 10% mortality. So yeah, so the weak ones.
90% survival is a much better way to
Yeah, that's a
factor
good
these
way.
things.
Right,
We're
provided
gonna try and keep it that way.
continue day after day.
All right. I can say after 10 days of this, we're dead.
No, it's just one. It was one event.
Well, it was the first batch. 10% of them croaked and 90% of them survived. And we're gonna make sure that that rate stays.
Virginia.
You said there was a salinity gradient across the pond, but there was also one vertically. What's the gradient vertically?
When we were measuring it yesterday or the day before,
Yeah.
it was 8 parts per thousand in the first 10 centimeters,
Okay.
around 15 to 18 parts per thousand at 20 centimeters, and then up to 30,
Good.
30 centimeters
which
from
is
the bottom.
seawater.
Which is seawater towards the bottom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so quite a significant gradient.
Yes.
And just one other thing is that we're kind of lucky we have this lower salinity too, because it retards oyster disease. Okay, if you're up around 30, they're on the bottom. Then there's an issue there. So having them up above actually has some advantage to keep you. Very low salinity, as I said, is not good because it stresses them, but where they are, they're probably fine. Last year we had them floating, and they were very robust and grew very fast.
But you can adjust the depth, so you can control both the salinity and the temperature.
Not with the floating bags.
Yes, but that might be the next thought,
Yeah.
whether slightly deeper is better.
Right, whether the non-floating option might be better if the floating requires you to be at the top.
We're going to keep watching salinity
Yeah.
because I think that was an anomaly. And we happened to put them in when the anomaly was peaking. And even a few days later, In other words, it probably was peaking when we put them in on Wednesday, but by Monday, the salinity had already gone up and was on an incline, and by Tuesday it was up to 22, so it went from 5 to 8 to 22 in a period of days. If we just held off and put them in a few days later, the salinity would have been consistent with where they came from.
Interesting.
And so we just, I think the point that you want to harden off. You want to harden off your, I mean, we all know this from gardening. You want to harden off your.
Yeah, we got the good guys left. The good tough guys are left in there. And gals.
And as the 300 Committee discovered in their T-Ticket Park, you don't spread the grass seed before the rain.
But
Exactly.
there's so many rains that.
Anyway, also I'd like just to make a comment that the volunteers, Steve in particular, and others who have been very heavily involved in the fabrication of the bags has been strong and good-spirited and a really good example. And we've also now, I also contacted, we've been working with the T-Ticket Civic Association, and now I've also made a liaison with the Falmouth Heights Mira Vista Improvement Group, and they are also now showing interest in volunteering and helping out. They've been connecting with CSO. So we're getting a whole neighborhood consciousness around this, as well as, which would be helpful in a lot of ways, just in terms of acceptance in some way of understanding, and also for security, because they'll be help watching and that kind of thing. So I think we can do a lot of, and it's been welcome with open arms so far. It's been very nice. So it's been a very good experience, at least in our connections.
Yeah, see, put on a little picnic, I guess, a couple of Fridays ago. And it's a very jolly group. People really are enthused about what they're doing. They enjoy what they're doing. They feel like they're doing something really good for the town. And it was a great feeling.
And we'll have another one. That was the halfway point of the bags. We celebrated half of. So when the bags are all put together, we'll have to have another one.
Okay, any other input on the shellfish demonstration project? Okay, next item, report on PRB neighborhood meetings, of which there were 2, and we're going to have to work on the 3rd, but let's hear about the first 2. Jerry went and Virginia went, and I don't know, Sia went to one of the...
No, it was just
you
Jerry.
two? Okay.
Jerry set them up, and it was very helpful.
Okay, you want to...
I'll start with Great Harbors. Steve and I were at Great. They're a association, and they own the roads that we have to go in, and they had the annual meeting. It was fortunate. They were interested. They approved the concept of going in. We obviously have to go back and report out when we have the preliminary design. We didn't want to start a preliminary design in any location if the neighbors didn't want it. We had budgeted for up to 4, I think, 1 in West Falmouth and 3 in the South Coast. So that was good news. And for the Seacoast Shores one, it was an informal meeting because their agenda was full. They want us to come back and probably present after we have the preliminary design done, so we can get into it in a little bit more detail. That is in a public street, so we don't necessarily need people's buy-in, but again, we don't want to go into a neighborhood that has significant concern. So I think it was positive, and I think as individuals they liked it, but they cautioned they weren't speaking as the board or as the association.
Right, yeah. So in the case of Great Harbors, you had the association membership there, and they took a formal vote. And as Jerry said, they wanted to see the design, but they at least were generally supportive of it. And they did also support putting a monitoring well in. And that's an important feature because we don't have any particular data, current data on the groundwater, either in terms of thickness or in terms of concentration of nitrates or ammonia in the Great Harbors Peninsula. We do have that data for Seacoast Shores from 2 different sources. Camp Dresser McKee Smith said, you know, we could make a better design if we at least had a monitoring well that gave us a clue to depth of the groundwater, concentration, and you're also looking at when do you move from the freshwater lens that's floating on top of the saltwater underneath, and how much of this has nitrates in it. So the fact that the association was willing to support having a monitoring well installed is I think a plus, and what that would cost is currently under review. When we met with Seacoast Shores, it was just the board of directors. It was not the association as a whole. And I thought they asked excellent questions, and they were willing to set up a general association meeting. So we're going to proceed to do a design for a particular section of Edgewater Drive West, but it has yet to be presented to the association as a whole. And then, as Eric just briefly mentioned, we haven't yet met with West Falmouth, and we need to do that.
Yeah, that was, since Steve is here, I mentioned it briefly to Steve, we need to meet with
Board of Directors.
Some group in West Falmouth, the Board of Directors of the villages, you know, who would you suggest in the next few weeks would be good to meet with?
I think Paul Sellers.
Good suggestion.
Yeah.
He's the village association?
Yeah, he's a big, strong part of it.
Okay.
He's not on the board anymore. Peter Gedney is the treasurer, and who is the president? We met with her.
Right, her.
Moran, isn't it?
Moran,
Right.
Sue Moran.
Sue Moran.
Right. I did have an email contact with them saying we'd love to come to your annual meeting and tell you about this, but the answer was they're already stuffed as far as the agenda goes, and didn't have any room for us at that meeting, which is next Monday.
Monday, okay.
But we should at least meet with their board of directors, meet with somebody to get out where this is being proposed and what's being proposed and what the benefit of it is.
I'll call John Moss and see who to talk to.
Yeah, he contacted us and he said he could talk to the 4 people who are the abutters. But I think this is a community thing. We want everyone to know what's going on down there.
Right.
So we are on a public street, but you know, we still want to get their buy-in. And the uniqueness of the West Falmouth Harbor one is we're probably putting the barrier closer to the centroid of the plume. We're probably intercepting, it's probably going in the best place.
Yes, you could call it a hot spot.
A hot spot, yeah.
Yeah. One other interesting thing came out of the discussion with the Board of Directors in Seacoast Shores. After they asked a lot of really good questions and understood the cross-section and the functioning and so on, they said, permeable reactive barrier, it's not a barrier. It gives the wrong mental image. It's really a filter. The groundwater is going through, it is intercepting and filtering out through a chemical reaction, removing the nitrogen. And so I put that out here now because I really think that this is a case where we need to correct the language and give the right impression. And I would suggest we change the CWMP and make it permeable reactive filters. So as we go out to the public, you know, if you have to stop and explain, if you're giving the wrong kind of image, we're just making the work harder for ourselves.
It might be permeable reactive denitrifier, might be better. I don't know.
Denitrifier, okay.
I'm not sure, but
Let's
also
play
I think
around.
it
Let's
has
play
some-
around with what it ought to go.
Yeah, well, it may take
Well,
up
yes.
phosphorus too.
It is a
so-
barrier to the nitrogen.
Well,
Well, no, it's an opportunity for the nitrogen to join up with other things that have a chemical reaction and go off as nitrogen
Just,
gas. It's a dating machine.
The dating machine.
Okay.
Yeah, we can,
I don't think we're going to put that in the CWMP.
No,
should be in the minutes.
Where's the newspaper?
I have a question. You mentioned there's very little data on the groundwater in West Falmouth. And you mentioned
no.
No.
Seacoast, Great Harbors.
Great Harbor.
Great Harbors.
How many monitoring wells are you talking about? Would they be on private property or public property?
I think we will, first we're going to say this is what the monitoring well is going to look like and how deep and whether it's going to be one port or multi-level and so on and so forth. I think the request is going to be to put it on the Great Harbor's common land. They own quite a bit of property that's on the waterfront there. They also own the roads. So within Great Harbors, it's private property in one sense or another. It's either on your lot or it's on their association land.
So how many are you thinking of?
At this point, we're just starting with one. Ultimately, wherever the permeable reactive denitrifier is installed, there will be monitoring wells both upstream and downstream just to show that it's actually doing what we say it can do.
What's the target date for installing the PRBs?
Don't have a target date. This
I'm approximately the year.
Or next year.
next year. But first you have to fund the construction. We have
No,
designed.
I'm leading up to another question.
2014, hopefully.
Didn't say this
2015,
summer.
Not this summer.
No, the summer of 2014, or the spring.
Not the spring.
The money, at the earliest, the money wouldn't be voted until May of 2014.
Yeah,
So late summer or fall of 2014.
at the earliest.
Probably not during the summer either.
Right.
Yes,
Oh, yeah.
well, in fact,
a good
both
point.
associations made that point. No,
So fall of 2014.
fall or winter.
Okay. So if you are dependent on monitoring upstream and downstream of it after it's built
Right,
to show that it's doing something,
right.
shouldn't you also measure upstream and downstream of where it will be
Yes.
the year before?
Yes,
Yeah,
Yes.
we can do that.
right.
So
Well,
that would be this fall.
Well, which that's why when you said when will it put in, I said at the earliest, because if you remember, DEP said we want a year of data ahead of time and then 3 years afterwards. So, you know, whether we get the monitoring well in, well,
I think we can get the monitoring well in this year.
This year.
Because
But it's
we might
only-
have some budget within the
But
CDM.
I don't like the use of the singular.
yes, exactly.
It's 2 times the number of potential sites, at least.
Well, West Falmouth doesn't need one because they already have enough
That's
data for
right.
there.
And Seacoast Shores doesn't need one.
Because there is one in Seacoast Shores already that
Yeah.
the commission put in 15 years ago.
Cape Cod Commission has wells there, and the Geological Survey has wells there.
Downstream of where it will be?
Not necessarily. So you have a general point there.
Right.
But we're trying to characterize the general groundwater flow.
For a different reason.
For a different
Right.
reason.
And I don't,
Right.
That's
I don't
right.
take
But we're not
issue with that.
saying-
I'm
when-
saying you need it upstream and downstream,
We don't know where upstream is
Before.
going to be yet.
or you don't have a controlled experiment.
Right,
True.
right.
We will, though.
Mike
I think the
McGrath
point
could
is-
argue it's been doing that all along.
Right.
I think that what we're going to do is get closer to the point where we're going to have this preliminary design where on a piece of paper we see where we're putting them, and then we're going to take a good hard look at how to do the monitoring plan, because it's a key part of all of this.
But you want it the same time of year, a year before.
It doesn't have to be the same time of year. You just want to have a 12-month, and then you want to have another 12-month.
Yeah, groundwater doesn't change too much. Obviously, there's seasonal occupation, so you would, there definitely would be an increase in nitrates in the groundwater during the summer months. But normally you sample quarterly, and it's not huge differences. normally.
And we could put the groundwater monitoring wells in well in advance of the pilot going in. It just delay
That's
the
right.
physical construction
Yeah,
in the
Exactly.
street. So you get a good point.
Yeah.
We could start the monitoring wells next summer.
Right.
Yeah, for all the design.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have the full year, and then we just wait another year before we can start constructing the pilot. If that turns out to be an issue, good point.
Or we could think about it this fall. I mean,
The question,
Well, that's why I
the
asked that
problem is
question
going to be
first.
funding,
Right.
funding to do it. Funding is going to be tight.
We'll see what the monitoring well is, cost.
Right, just
Well,
to have,
presumably
Right.
peanuts compared to the cost of putting in the PRB itself.
well, yes,
Right.
sure.
But we have an existing budget.
Yeah, the PRB installation would be new money voted by the
Right.
town in May of 14, so.
But we have a budget for
But we have-
baseline monitoring, and you don't
Right,
want,
and it could-
you don't want all
That's
the
a good
money
point.
spent on the
And-
PRB to be
and-
wasted
and
because
there are
you
a
don't
lot
know
of
what it's doing.
demands on that line item.
well,
That's a good
But
point.
point well taken, and if the money is an issue, we'll address it.
Yeah, we have some money in the allocation that came out of town meeting.
Yeah.
So we're doing piece by piece. We got a lot of dollars floating around, and we want to stay within the estimated preliminary budget before we start taking away from another estimated preliminary
Right,
budget.
no, we've done that so far, and you're right, want to keep doing that. Ron?
I just have two points. One is that just for our worldwide listening audience, the reason that the monitoring is important is because we're trying to determine a nitrogen reduction credit that could be assigned to the PRBs, so that we understand that, so everyone who may be listening understands that we're trying to look at how to meet the total maximum daily load of nitrogen coming into the estuaries, and to what extent these installations can contribute to that. So I think that's an important thing to
Yeah.
keep in mind. That's why your point is so well taken as well. And the second thing is, was anything else? I mean, you were talking about PRBs at these meetings. Were there any more general questions about our tasks or our assignment that came up?
We
beyond
tried to put it in the context that the town is looking at the nutrient issues, and
Yeah.
particularly on the south coast. You have to remember, a lot of these people are seasonal that we're talking to. A few of them knew, where we were sort of in the process. But a lot of them had only sort of here and there read something in the enterprise. So no one had a global view.
And we didn't want to go back and revisit where we were in the CWMP and why
I
we
just
were
wondered if they
suing them.
raised any
No, you only had
questions.
15 minutes.
Yeah.
No.
We ended up as a half hour,
That's the other
45
thing.
minutes.
One place we had half an hour, the other one at an hour, they said. and it was all their questions that we were answering.
Interesting point that I heard, not having been there, but at one of them, the premise here that if PRBs work, they wouldn't have to be sewered, and they said, well, that's terrific. And then the other one, the question was, you mean if this goes in, we're not going to get a sewer?
The Cadillac.
Yes, that's right. They said they considered the sewer the Cadillac, and they were getting the Chevy. And
Which one?
well, it wouldn't be fair to say who. But it shows you the range of reactions.
Yeah.
And these were people that the one thing that did come through is they all cared about their estuaries. They talked about their grandchildren and cohogging and what they used to do. And so they were aware of the degradation of the estuaries. That was really encouraging.
That's great. Steve?
Do we need Concom approval for the PRBs?
Yes.
Yes.
Anything within 100 feet.
And
of
will they
wetland.
do the same thing that they did with the shellfish?
Probably. And
So would it make sense to talk to them well in advance?
of course.
We have.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah.
They've been attending the meetings that we've had with the consultant. In fact, the very first meeting, they were right there
Right.
weighing in on what sites would be appropriate or less so. So they're
Enthusiastic.
they're part of the
And the
conversation.
monitoring well is not very invasive. We're in existing streets, so we may be within their jurisdictional boundaries, but it's a lot different than if we were in people's backyards or whether we were going through actual wetlands.
Right.
So I think so long as we keep them informed, they're excited about it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Agree.
was
Yeah.
just supporting my previous point. They might, at the last minute, say, oh yeah, you should have taken data ahead of time. Now wait a year,
Right.
which they almost did with the shellfish.
The point that I forgot on the data ahead of time, when we put the barrier in, we can start taking data ahead of time at that point, because that's going to be legitimate 1 year of data before it goes through the barrier, as well as 1 year of data after it goes through the barrier. So there's no need to put the wells in a year in advance, because we're measuring upstream and downstream. So we'll know what the upstream concentrations are and the downstream concentrations within the same experimental year.
All right.
Good point.
Great.
Yeah.
It just came to me. I knew there was Couldn't
If you do it
fumble.
quickly enough.
If you do it quickly.
You just saved us a whole pile of money. Any other reports on the neighborhood meetings? I think our immediate task is to get something going in West Falmouth. Okay, the other two neighborhoods are ahead, and we want to make sure West Falmouth knows what's going on here. Distribution of draft revised final CWMP. This is going to be distributed today. We all have a week to ponder it,
Have
and
names?
we come back
Yes.
at the meeting next week.
There should
Is
be,
it meeting next week?
Yeah.
should be 2 volumes.
Yeah, first and third, but we didn't meet on the first meet because it was the 4th of July.
Oh, I see.
Science person, huh?
This has gone to the Board of Selectmen already, and obviously our input on the 18th will go into a newly printed version that will also go to them. But
This has gone to them already? They have?
they wanted to see things in the process and not at the end of the process. So
Okay.
It was delivered to the office this afternoon, about
yeah.
4
This says
o'clock.
John's.
So when it said
John.
it's gone
two
to,
Johns.
here's
Yes,
Steve's.
It's a 2-volume
It's a
piece.
2-volume. The first
is for
volume
Steve.
is the text and the tables. The second volume is the figures. All the appendices are on disc.
Do you want to talk about this a little?
Okay.
Since everybody's going to walk out of here with it, they should.
Okay. It's been labeled a preliminary draft of the final
You should-
Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan. The town has been working on this since 2007, when we filed the first environmental notification form. We have moved through the process. A year ago, we filed what's called the draft Comprehensive Wastewater Management Plan, and it is also an environmental impact report. And then I'll get to the last label here in a minute. When you file a draft with the Massachusetts EPA, there is comments by all state agencies and the public. And those comments require a response, and the town has to proceed with its evaluations and its planning until it gets to the stage that's called the final. And what you're looking at is the final, but it is labeled preliminary draft final, so that there can be additional corrections from the committee. And the Board of Selectmen specifically asked that we not vote the draft and then give it to them. They wanted to have it at the preliminary stage. So we're basically going to be marking up this document to get to the final stage. There also are some gaps where we're still having evaluations done on Crocker Pond. We still don't have all those reports back. Those are soil reports, and in some cases modeling for nitrogen. So there you will find a few gaps in here. Those reports should be in within another week or two. And they still have to be incorporated, obviously, into the text. The last part of this label says Targeted Watershed Management Plan. That has been added since last year because the Cape Cod Commission has now entered a formal process of updating its water quality management plan. It's called Section 208. And it has designated all of the watersheds on the Cape into 2 categories. You're either a shared watershed or you are a targeted watershed, meaning that the watershed is entirely within the town's borders. In the case of Falmouth, we actually have quite a number of targeted watersheds, and Little Pond is one of them. So this last label, Targeted Watershed Management Plan, is going to crop up on all of the other reports done in the other towns if they have a watershed they totally own. If they don't, if it's a shared watershed, such as the Walkwhite watershed, then there's a whole additional process that our committee and Mashpee and a bit of Sandwich are going to have to go through. And we're actually going to have to plan as a group, or we wouldn't be having a meeting like this. We would have to have Mashpee present and Sandwich as well. So that's the background on the report. We have tried to get rid of all of the old history. It's summarized in a paragraph, or it's referred to as an appendix. We've tried to make this current information. It has an extensive description on the aquaculture, extensive description on the eco-toilets, things that were missing from previous reports. And then it also talks about the sewering component and the PRBs, and it's our current knowledge as best we could.
People should understand this is not new positions, and it's not. The only new information is updating from previously not available information.
Right.
It's basically the same story that we sent up, that the Board of Selectmen sent up to DEP, to the MEPA people back in August of last year. It's been rewritten because some of the comments came back saying this is very hard to follow, and it's been rewritten so that it is not hard to follow. But it is not taking any positions on any subject that weren't previously adopted by the Board of Selectmen a year ago.
The executive summary in the response to comments could be 2 places to start, and then the recommended plan.
Yes. As you remember, this committee went through the executive summary and the response to comments line by line. So you've already seen those, and you've already voted and edited them. But the remaining chapters, as I said, the summary of previous work is short. And then we have an entire chapter on non-traditional nitrogen and wastewater management. And that goes through in great detail the inlet widening, the eco-toilets, the permeable reactive filters, stormwater, and other ocean outfall, and so on. And then there's a chapter that has to do with the sewering. We're required to put in public participation, so that's a list of everything that's been done in the last year. And then Chapter 6 is the recommended plan, and that has funding in it. And Chapter 7 is a requirement. It's called the environmental impact analysis, and the engineers are required to look at each of the actions and see what their impacts would be. That's a summary of the table of contents.
We hope to get it published on the web tomorrow or Monday, because I do have a complete disc. I'll be working with Sia, and we'll put it up there so it's easily, maybe by, I haven't looked at the disc, so people don't have to download 3 million megabytes to get to chapter 1 or something like that.
Oh, okay.
We'll try to do it chapter by chapter.
Yeah.
if we can.
Yes.
Good.
Yeah.
The way the last year's is on one page, but each chapter is a different link to download. We'll try to structure it the same way.
Okay.
Good.
Right.
And we'll take it up at the meeting on the 18th. And we will not leave the room until it's done, because that's our deadline.
And I think we should bring refreshments, and I think we should start at 7.
Bring your toothbrush.
So the response to comments is not included here.
The response to comments is an appendix, and so I don't...
It's not included as far as I could
I
discover.
Okay.
couldn't find the response to comment.
Well,
Well, that's what I said. It's in the appendix. Okay,
Oh,
and
it's
the
in-
appendix,
I
the
see.
appendix
In the
is
disc.
on disk.
Oh,
All the
on the disc.
appendices are on disk.
have we tested to be sure you can read these discs?
I'm just getting it for
I
the
just
first
got
time.
it, and I got it late this afternoon. I figured, get it to you, we'll work out the details.
Yes.
The last time I tried to read one of these discs, I couldn't read it. I was just wondering.
Do you have a Mac?
Yeah, I do.
That
That's why?
Sometimes.
Yeah, okay, well,
You should be
Okay,
able to
well-
open
check
Word,
it.
though.
Let's,
Right.
please check it.
Sometimes.
Okay. Any,
We're going to post it. You will get it online.
actually, that's a good idea. Might be easier.
all right.
So
Okay.
definitely the appendices, because that's...
Any other comments or discussion on?
So everything is on the disk.
No, the appendices are on the disk.
It says preliminary draft I'm not sure, it has 2 things on there,
Let me,
Appendices.
well, you're right, that this does say it has the preliminary draft as well as the appendices.
Does it say that, or does it
No.
just, or is just that the title
No,
of it?
I think you're right, Wayne. I think they're just saying that.
That's just the
We'll
title.
open
That's just
Find
the
out.
title.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, yeah, that was my understanding. We were getting
was my-
hard copy of the tables, the figures, and the text, and the appendices were on disk.
Okay.
Steve?
The elves in my basement kitsch workshop thought that Virginia should be recognized for all her work.
No.
And CWMP can stand for other things.
Careful work makes progress. Oh. Steve, I love it. Thank you so much.
It's not escaped our notice that you could bring goodies to the next meeting.
Yes, I thought the same thing. Fine, we'll.
Well, it's well deserved. She has been putting in at least 20 hours a week for how many months? To basically take that gargantuan pile of comments and issues and make sense out of them, and make order out of them, and make English out of them, and make the whole thing comprehensible and compelling. It's an amazing piece of work, and no one else could have done it. Speaking for myself.
Well, you haven't read it yet. I do think it's an improved document over a year ago. And I worked very well with Nate. He was very responsive, so it was a mutual product.
Good. Right. Well, good. With assistance from the two elves over here too. This is
Yeah.
No, see, I mean, on this one, I had other things to do. I was elfing other things. Nate is not going to be here next week because I don't, do you want him here?
Oh, yes.
Do we? For the editing part. Now, this week we didn't need him. Maybe next week we do.
Next week he's here, and I believe Jeff is also.
Okay, I just want to make sure they're
Yes.
here for the
I think
entirety then.
They're both here next week.
Okay.
Right. Good.
Right.
And we're starting at 7 o'clock.
And we
at
start at 7.
Are we actually going to try to get all the way through?
Oh yes.
I'm
That's
gonna
why
make-
the toothpaste.
I'm going to make a practical suggestion.
Yeah.
When you think back to our last two times, executive summary, obviously wordsmithing was important, maybe on the response to comments, not quite as much. But I think we should focus on substantive issues. And then if you have a wordsmithing suggestion, can you just give it to Sia and we'll put those all together? Not saying that all of them will be included, but I agree with Eric. We have to work our way through this. There are going to be some chapters where you're really not going to care very much about a listing of how many televised presentations we had and how many meetings we went to and so on and so forth. So like chapter 5, I think we can go through in 5 minutes. But there's some other chapters that really are important. Chapters 3, 4, and 6 are very important.
But reiterating, it is not new concepts or new directions. It's the old directions made clear.
Right, and brought along, because there's been a year of progress. Look at all the things that have happened in aquaculture, look at all the things that have happened in eco-toilets.
Right.
All of that information that's been gathered and structured is now in this document. It never existed in writing anywhere. And this is a document that lots of towns and regulatory agencies are going to look at.
We should sell it.
We should copyright
We wish.
it.
We should copyright it. And it's true.
Ron.
I just have one point, I just sort of went through it a little bit. There was this review of sites 7 and 10. It's in here. There's the water bodies are not all in the table, all the downstream impact.
Okay.
Water bodies that you can find here.
I haven't seen it in print, so I have to say to you, I was given pre-draft. I went through and made as many corrections as I could, but I did not see the ultimate product until tonight. So, so I have to check and see whether everything that I got in, that I put in was incorporated.
Okay. Well, Crocker Pond is not here still, at least. And that, what's the name of that creek again that I can never pronounce?
Okay, what page are you on?
I'm on page, table 4-5.
4-5.
Yeah, I'm on the right page, I'm just going through this quickly.
Okay.
I want to make sure that that was brought to.
Right. Well, it's safe to say it's in the text.
It's certainly in the text.
And we're
Okay.
doing studies on it. And there'll be
Yeah. But
probably,
But if he's giving us an old.
There's no page, it's
chart.
page 14, I guess, yeah.
Okay. Well, I will need to go through this and see if something is missing.
Crocker Pond is mentioned, I can see in the text on there, if it wasn't before.
And I think we should.
Yeah. Oh wait, there is a, all right, there's a big unknown here. Okay, anyway, it is in another table on 421.
Yeah. I seem to remember a fair amount of discussion.
There's a whole technical report coming in on this too.
Right.
I mean, we're gonna probably have to insert it as an appendix, or, you know, that's
No,
gonna be.
it will go into the final volume.
No, the report or the summary of the report?
This thing
Okay.
is going to be reprinted
Yeah.
with the corrections or
Right.
anything that's missing, and the final reports that we're still waiting for.
And that'll be done by
And we will
next
be,
week?
no.
No, this is after next week. I mean, between now and next week, we get to look at it and come up with the edits that we think are appropriate. Then it gets
My guess
We
is
don't
it,
vote on it next week, then we.
that's
vote on
correct. You're not voting on it
We're
next,
just commenting on it next week.
that's right. That's right. Yeah.
And then, so a new printed version with our edits goes to the selectmen. Is that-
No,
is
no,
that
the
correct?
selectmen are seeing
No, they've got
this.
this one, I understand.
They see this
When
one.
are they going to see our additions and corrections?
They're not going to see them immediately. And my understanding was they wanted to see the, let's call it the raw copy.
True enough, but I
Okay,
think, well,
so ultimately, you're saying the final is probably going to be done in August or the early part of September? Okay, and then it gets filed October 1st, at least that's the goal.
okay.
So, we are talking next week about substantive issues that need attention, but we're not going to vote language on those substantive issues next week.
I see my chairman
Yeah.
frowning.
Yeah.
Is that what
And,
you're
well,
saying?
it's, again, maybe we've misunderstood. My understanding was the selectmen did not want the committee to vote on the draft until they had a chance to weigh in.
But we'll find out tomorrow morning, because
Okay,
we're
Yeah,
fair
going
that's
enough.
true.
so we'll
Let's do it
we'll
that
have an
way.
answer to that, what their intention was.
Okay.
Oh, I just want to back up and clarify. We are going to put a healthy discussion on Crocker Pond in the main,
Absolutely.
but like all other technical reports, I don't know, we have 3 or 4 of them, I
The
think.
technical reports will be in the appendix.
Yeah, okay, just wanted
Yeah.
to make sure on
Yep.
the,
Right,
you know,
it'll be-
orchestrating.
Yep. 2 places.
Okay, any further discussion on the draft, revised, preliminary CWMP proposed? All right, any other reports by members and staff? See
I
ya.
have a quick one on constant contact.
No.
The
That's it.
letter went out
Yay.
Ah.
to the Oyster Pond watershed folks, and after a bit of a snafu with the address, we fixed it, and about 4 people called to be put on the list, and 16 people signed up through Constant Contact. So that's over 10% response rate to the letter
So far.
so far
Yeah, they
in
went
the
out
first
Friday?
week. And it went out.
On the
People-
long weekend, people.
People got it over the weekend. People are doing it this week. I bet a lot of people who are going to sign up will do it tomorrow. And so we're off to a good start with that. For our nationwide viewing audience, we sent a letter out to the Oyster Pond using internet-based database, I guess, name aggregation tool called Constant Contact for managing contacts. People signed up with their email address, and we're asking people if they want to be kept informed of activities related to the Oyster Pond watershed to let us know. So people signed up with their emails, so we can now have a database when we want to do an email invite or information blast or something. So that's going well. And I had a question relating to this. Initially, when it got signed up, I did it through my office, because the way you have to sign up, there was a process. I had to log in and design stuff and fix stuff and change stuff. And so you had to be signed up to do this. And you do that through a credit card, because at the time I didn't want to wait for a check to come through the channels, because there's a window of work getting done, and I had that window. So it's right now going through ScienceWares, and I can, according to Jerry, get reimbursed for that as a reasonable reimbursable expense. But what I wanted to bring to the board's attention is that I looked at the pricing today, and if we sign up for a block of time in pay in advance, we get a 20% discount or a 30% discount, which is not nothing. So if we sign up for 6 months, it's $75. If we sign up for a year, it's $145. So if you don't, it's $15 a month. So what I'm wondering is, should we, I know this is big money.
$5, I hear. Between 6 months and a year, we save $5.
No, it's compared to
75
the
and
each.
140.
40, right, 145.
Okay, I see what you mean. I
But
see what you mean.
15 a year.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A month.
Yeah,
But it's
right.
15 a month.
Right.
So,
Right.
and then there's the simplicity of paying the bill once and getting reimbursed once as opposed to getting reimbursed monthly. That's not as important. I'm just, if we could just take a moment and think about how long into the future we think we want to hold this account.
I move that we pay for 1 year, which would be 145, instead of the 180 if you did it month by month.
And I hear moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Thanks.
And it comes out of Oyster Pond.
Oyster Pond.
It's coming
I
out of
think
the
we
waste.
can do it.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I know you can.
Right. Just the most efficient way to do it. And I just wanted to.
Right.
Good. Thank you.
A little bit of an update on our consultant with SMAST. And the last time this group met, we had put out an RFP.
That's right.
And maybe you could kind of describe what's happened since then.
We got 3 respondents, and SMAS was the most responsible, and I figured that, lowest and most advantageous. So we're moving ahead with them, and they're well into monitoring. They made some enhancements of suggestions since they already go out and monitor in May and June, and that data would be useful, and it's exactly the same data that the Concom wanted. So, I mean, we're working with them, they're working with us. I think we're working their admin issues and we're working our admin issues, and I think things are going very smoothly. I see emails daily from SMAS to SIA on DO and salinity. They had someone come over to help us with the salinity profile. So it's been going very well.
Yeah, they've been doing a very good job, very responsive. It's an era of good feeling, and I'm very happy to see it. I'm really glad they're doing it now, because getting somebody new in there would have been problematic for what you're doing now. So that's a winner. Any other reports from members? Ron?
This is a bit late in a way, because several of us did a little field trip with Mike McGrath to Harbor, and we never really reported on that. And I think that his idea was to take us during a low tide to show us where algae was building up from what he understood to be nutrient inflow points. And what was curious about this visit was that the major points, or along the shore where we saw lots of algae, were right below the storm drains from the road. It was pretty much consistently that way, most dramatically, except maybe the Quistit Harbor boat rail thing that goes to launches boats. There was a patch there as well. And so it was interesting to try and sort. It doesn't mean that coincidentally that wasn't groundwater flowing in or something, but it was pretty distinctive right at the shoreline where he was pointing it out. We keep finding the little grates for the water to flow in. So that was kind of interesting.
Did he note that?
He noted it. Yeah, he saw it too. And but we didn't come to any conclusion about anything. But it was just from not exactly subjective, but from a direct observation, we saw that this was the relationship, and it wasn't clear whether it was just surface runoff coming down from the slope there, in part with all kinds of nutrients coming down and then finally going down in at that point, or it could have been an upwelling at that point, but it would have been pretty distinctive. I think. I don't know. You were there.
Yeah, I agree. We didn't reach a conclusion
Right.
on it.
Yeah, it wasn't that clear, but that was one element that was quite evident. And I'd like to just come back again to the shellfish component. And I just want to think, the team that's working on this, I mentioned the volunteers, but the town employees, you see, everybody is on top of it.
Okay.
And I think that this notion of the glitch, in a way, it turned out to be a relatively small glitch, but that was picked up very quickly because of their due diligence and attentiveness to the project. So people are very, very, they're, from Chuck to Craig, oversight, and Chuck and Dan and Anthony and the team is really, they're really good, and working with the volunteers, and volunteers, again, I can't say enough, because it's a key element. Like this town basically runs to a lot to an extent on volunteers, and here's another example where people are really, I think, mostly concerned about the well-being of the town, and that this is an option, and it could be a significant contribution to the future. So,
Great.
so I'd just like to say that it is a full, broad-based effort that's very harmonious.
Terrific.
So,
Terrific.
We had a nice cookout too.
yeah, the cookout. Yeah, I see. Oh, yeah, the big cookout, right?
All right.
And that, of course, that made people very happy. That was very. You came in a party time. So
Any other reports by members and staff, or any comment by non-members and non-staff?
well, I just have one more.
Oh, sure, Ron.
Actually, Hilda and Earl and I went over to Martha's Vineyard yesterday to give a presentation at the Martha's Vineyard Commission on alternatives, and it was with the was it the Water Alliance? Yeah, the Vineyard Water Alliance, and they were interested in looking at things. And I think it's a wastewater treatment plan from Edgartown. We didn't go to the Edgartown plant when we went over, but he attended. And he actually, like everyone, is overwhelmed, with umpteen things to do and new tasks that are huge with concerning storm protection and that kind of thing. But he was his interest was kind of perked over they also have a sludge removal problem, not problem, but it's part of the design. It costs $70,000 a year to remove the sludge from the vineyard. And so the notion of the eco-drum idea, of being able to use it, because there's quite a bit of agriculture on the island. And of course, everyone was talking about where do you put it. I mean, it's the usual things, once you start, the hurdles are there, but at least it piqued his interest, because it was something that they could very well tie into that issue they're dealing with and the costs. And he also noted, and Jerry may make a note of this, that apparently their sludge that they deal with is much drier and requires less shipping. I mean, you have to make a comparison than what comes out of our plant, because of this, I don't know what kind of system they have.
Just they have a different dewatering system. Our dewatering system is not efficient. You
Right.
need a centrifuge. We put out more water than we should. That's well known. It's one of the things we have to fix.
Right. So anyway, but that was another point. Just as he said, we compare. He said, well, how many units are on it? I kind of explained, we sort of did the compare. He said, something's not computing in his mind because of the volume that he has to deal with versus what we have to deal with. So it could be something the town could look into to see if we can, it might, because the savings may be huge if we don't have to shift that much off from the existing facility. So that would be something to look into.
It's one of the things I think we are looking at is the upgrades. There's a lot of things that all have a price tag on them.
Sure.
Yeah.
If you can reduce the volume of gallons per day in that fashion, you've done something worthwhile.
Yeah.
Can I ask?
Sure. Steve?
Jerry, in this industry, when there's a potential cost-saving technology like that, are there ever companies that come along and offer a turnkey service, analogous to this thing that's done with the Falmouth Energy Committee?
Not that I know of, but there might be. I'm sure they would have been banging on our door. The one, and I think Ron brought it up, was that the MWRA was in search of more solids, but I don't think they ever necessarily approached us, or the capital investment they might have had to make might not have been worth it. But I think they're the only ones I know that would be someone that may want it.
If I may, that they had said that at one point they were going to re-examine their program in terms of who they, what they take and where they
Right.
take it from. And they were going, and I'm not sure if that's this year or next year or something, but it was at some point, they had a set time limit, you know, period where the current program could be reconsidered, and it might be coming up now. But that's more for, yeah, dealing with it up there. The other thing, though, from the meeting as well was that there was a lot of interest in considering the alternatives. There's a lot of shellfish work going on over there. And this is an important point, because I had approached the CPC a couple years ago about support for pond restoration through shellfish, and it was like not on the radar screen, but there's a precedent on the vineyard where they did. I sent a note.
Yes, you did. Right.
There is a precedent. So if we need, as we progress into the subsequent years, as funding needs may come up, we may want to just explore that, because there is a precedent, and it does fit with what I think what common interests are.
Sure.
So so that was mentioned as well. And then he said something else. What was it? One of the shellfish guys said that he learned something from us about, in other words, it went the other way as well. You know?
Yeah.
Good.
That's great.
So it was a good, small meeting, but it was a very nice, you know, a lot of interest everywhere for what we're doing. And I had explained about how the state's looking at Falmouth as with all of the goodwill and support of our citizenry, to look at these pilots or demonstrations to see if, you know, working with DEP and DMF as well, and our own departments and the units. So it was quite positive, quite positive.
Good. Win.
Ron, you and I were at that meeting, the CLF meeting at the
Oh, right.
at 594
595 Old Post Road.
Old Post Road in Katuitt, where I'm not prepared to give an exact good summary of exactly what the person from CLF said, but it's quite clear that they think of themselves as being more on our side than I ever heard them before. In other words, they think of themselves as trying to help the Cape and help Falmouth and so forth to avoid having to do big things. They claim they brought this whole thing up for the purpose of getting something started.
What organization is it?
Conservation
Conservation
Law
Law.
Foundation.
They're working with the Buzzards Bay Coalition.
Yeah,
Sued the EPA.
yeah, that's not how their lawsuit reads.
No.
They're
Their
a very
lawyers might,
litigious organization, but they have
Well, they're all
a good motive.
yes.
And they just,
Great motivation.
If you had a question for them, I think I did ask it. If I can imagine what you would have asked, it was like, why are you boxing us in a corner?
Right. Great.
Not exactly that,
How to
but
answer.
yeah.
Very
What?
long answers without any substance.
Yeah, right.
Very
Yep.
like a lawyer.
Yeah. Yes.
Well,
they said nothing very well.
sorry
They
to
said
say.
nothing very well.
Well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, any other reports by members, staff, or non-members and staff? Paul, want to say anything?
I'm just trying to see around Jerry.
Maybe our liaisons sit at the table next week.
That's a good point.
Yeah, you could come sit up here.
You want the liaisons to sit at the
I
table?
can't sit there unless Steve sits there.
Well, we're about to adjourn, so it really doesn't
It
matter.
doesn't
No, in the
matter.
future meetings.
In the future, why not? Yeah, why not?
One thing I would say about this CLF though is that they are as dedicated as we are, and everyone is to protecting our waters.
Right.
And I'll go about vision on that.
Hey, can I
Is
come
one
on
thing,
and get
but everyone is very committed.
Right.
So
That
that was
was-
very
I'll give them that.
Harvesting algae. Did you tell them?
Oh, and they're harvesting. They're harvesting the excess algae that's there. And they have some questions about it because they're harvesting creatures with it. So
Yes.
it's sort of a-
Could be a problem.
Conservation Commission might
That
have
sounded a
a
little-
thought or two on that.
That sounded a little
Yeah, okay, great.
Right,
unintended consequences.
review and vote on minutes of prior meeting, all of which were sent around. Everybody had a chance to look at them. Any modifications, additions, or corrections?
I just sent one note.
Yes.
Yeah, copy to you. Okay.
It's fixed.
Same thing.
Okay, it's just one word.
Move the minutes of June 20th.
Mine was one word too. I can't remember what it was.
It was about an article that I had.
That's right, you saw I had written it, and in fact, I just cut it out. All right, fair enough. So moved and seconded to adopt the minutes as, with these minor corrections that were previously noted by everybody. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? No? Matt, we're ready for a motion to adjourn.
So move, Mr. Chairman.
Second? Discussion? All in favor?
Matt, did you open up the disc? What was